David.
Lennon.
It's finally time. It's finally time for us to check out.
Oh, yeah. Woo!
Woo! It's finally time for us to check out the iconic Dead Space Trilogy.
Oh, baby, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
We posted a poll and 66% of you guys voted for Dead Space over the Crisis Trilogy. So over the next few weeks... You son of a bitch. Over the next few weeks, David and myself will be making ourselves whole again, if you will, by exploring each of the Dead Space games to see if they do, in fact, hold up in the year of our Lord 2025. So, obviously, today we are going to be revisiting Dead Space. Just to clarify, though, so I actually played the 2008 version, which came out on Xbox 360 originally, and I believe, David, you played the 2023 remake?
I did. I played the better version.
To be fair, I am kind of jealous because I've seen...
You had the choice. You had the option.
I know, man. I know. But, I mean, I've seen so many videos of the remake version and it just looks absolutely stunning. So, you know, fingers crossed the rest of the series gets a remake treatment. But... stick around to the end of this video, by the way. There will be spoilers if you haven't played this game. If you haven't played this game, what are you doing? Just play the game. But it's been around since the beginning of time, basically. We'll cover the story and go through our thoughts about the game and then reach the verdict at the end of this video. But I reckon we should just start off with the story and setting, David.
Love it. Let's do it.
In Dead Space, you play as Isaac Clarke, and he's an engineer sent with a small repair crew to fix a massive, planet-cracking mining ship, which is called the USG Ishimura. And not only that, but he's also received...
I love that name.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that name. It's like the best name you can give. It's the best name you can give to the ship. It's the best name. It's the best planet cracker. It's a great planet cracker.
Not only that, but he's also received a distress call from his girlfriend, Nicole. So he's hoping to kill two birds with one stone, so to speak. He's going to fix the ship and save the girl. But very quickly, Isaac and his crew find the ship completely overrun by grotesque
There's something
alien...
sinister going on.
Yeah, that's right. I've got a sneaking suspicion that something's afoot here.
There's an imposter among us in the vents.
Among us. But yes, so it's a bunch of basically this swarm of grotesque alien mutilations called the... Fuck, what are they called again?
The Necromorphs?
The Necromorphs. So they are basically born from this mysterious artifact known as the Marker. So I guess let's just talk about the Ishimura for a second here, because obviously all of the levels, you're traversing all of these different areas within the Ishimura ship. And just, I think it's the perfect setting, David. Just it itself feels like this living, breathing horror set piece. You're going through this labyrinth of all these hallways and, you know, up and down all these elevators. It feels so claustrophobic, and you never know when something's going to jump out at you because the ship is just falling apart, basically. It's just gone to shit. And, you know, watch out for the vents. But yeah, what do you think? What do you think of the setting?
It's the perfect setting. The USG Ishimura is pretty much a character in its own right, and it is a beautiful setting to obviously have a horror game take place in, especially with its claustrophobic setting, the eeriness of the Necromorphs. You truly do feel alone in this ship. There are no allies that you have. There is no backup that's behind you. You are literally a one-man gun at the moment, and oh boy, it looks incredibly beautiful on the remake, especially with the different levels. It has its own unique different systems, also unique different visuals, which you can see that you're going through different parts of the ship, and you can see that this ship was once a livable, massive
colony,
thing that had
so to speak,
a colony on it, that people were living on it.
Gosh, when you were talking about like being a one-man army, can I just quickly say how useless your allies are? Like, specifically, like, the commander guy. He's, like, always calling you. He's always hitting you up once you've completed a task, and he's just like, great job, Isaac. That's really cool. Hate to be a pest, though, but can you now go over to this part of the ship and do yet another super dangerous task for me? And then it's
Isaac,
like, before
would you kindly?
Well, you know, in the original version of the game, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but the original version of the game, Isaac just doesn't talk. But then in the new version, he does talk. He's got actual dialogue and voice lines. But, you know, basically the commander guy just does not give Isaac a chance to even respond because he's like, oh, anyway, I think I can hear something moving around. I gotta go. But anyway, you do that job for me. It's just like, come on, man. Am I doing everything here? I'm just an engineer.
Yeah, I was just meant to fix the ship. No, I 100% agree. So, you know, in the 2008 version, it really much was like, you know, he was a silent protagonist. Yeah. Besides a few grunts in here when he got damage. And it is right. Like, the commander's like, hey, Isaac, do this. By the way, gotta go. Monsters everywhere.
Gotta blast.
In the remake, he is voiced by the same voice actor that did the voice in Dead Space 2 and 3.
Yeah.
So it definitely feels very continuous with the remake. And it is a nice little touch that he does have a voice in the remake because it does open up a lot more story-driven elements that we don't really see in the 2008 version compared to obviously the 2023 version. And he's acted brilliantly. Like, the voice actor knows how to play Isaac because he's played that. He's embodied that character for so many years.
Yeah. No, well, I didn't even realize it was the same voice actor, so that's really fascinating. And it makes sense. It's really cool that the voice actor was able to reprise the role as well. Yeah. So, for continuity's sake, I think that's awesome. But I
love continuity.
Can we talk about the presentation, but also more specifically, one thing that I find so groundbreaking about Dead Space? So, again, keeping in mind the context that this game came out in 2008, how ahead of its time this game was when it came to the HUD, or lack thereof. Like, everything you need to know is a part of Isaac's suit. Yeah. You know, you've got the health bar is on his spine, the ammo counter is like everything.
Hovering on the gun.
It's just all the menus and comms, they're displayed in real time without you actually ever pausing the game, which, by the way, as someone who hates anything scary, that is horrible because
it's awful, isn't it?
I'm like trying to listen to what these people are saying. And I'm like, is a necromorph just going to jump out at me like while I'm just trying to listen to this? I would have to stop moving because I knew that if I moved somewhere else, something's probably going to jump out at me. It was horrible, but obviously in a good way. But I just thought it was so cool that the cutscenes and the crew communications and literally everything, like even you looking at your inventory and all that stuff, it's all in real time. You don't ever go to like a pause menu or anything like that. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's incredible. I remember when I first played the 2008 version for the first time and just seeing like, okay, my inventory is just a part of the suit. And I really couldn't comprehend back then, like, why did they make it like this? But now replaying it, it doesn't allow you to rest. It always keeps you in a heightened state, especially when you hear them crawling in the vents and you're like, they're going to pop out of that vent. And then they don't, and you're just like, I hate that because it's just the anticipation that gets you.
Yeah. And this game does such a good job at that.
And it does it brilliantly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, besides just how good this game looks, like, the game looks good, the sound design is incredible, and how, I think as well, just with the presentation, with like when you're shooting at the enemies and dismembering them and all that, it's just really impressive physics. But you touched on something there, and I kind of want to talk about it now. I want to hear your opinion. How effective do you think this game is with horror?
Oh, I think it's incredibly effective. Yeah. I think it's one of the best horror experiences that you can play. If you've never played a survival horror game, Dead Space is a great entry into the survival horror space. I think it does it so well because it just, like I said, it builds up that anticipation. Like, you know, you just don't know what's around the corner and you always feel alone. But at the same time, you always feel like you're being watched. You always feel like there's eyes on you, and it always keeps you in a heightened state, especially when you know that one could pop out of a vent and immediately end you, like completely just crush you. Or you can find yourself in an arena and the quarantine goes off and you're like, oh boy, here we go.
Yeah, and can I also say as well, I think the movement plays a really big factor into how terrifying this game can be as well, because Isaac is kind of slow. He
is, yeah.
He moves slow, he turns. Dude, the look sensitivity is so slow. and also, like, when you're like face to face with the necromorph and you accidentally, like, you're swinging at them, which is like pretty ineffective, and you're trying to like switch to aiming and shooting and all that stuff, like anything it's just so slow, dude. It's frustrating, but I think it adds to this claustrophobic feeling in a way. And another thing is that, kind of like what you were talking about just before, how it's like quarantine areas where you're trying to, like, you know, you're facing off against a couple of enemies, I guess. I found myself always having to look, like I was constantly doing like 360s, just looking around, because you never know which way they're going to spawn from, and especially with enemies coming through from the vents, like, There are so many fucking vents in this room. This could be the one in front of me. It could be the one behind me. And it has a classic jump scare noise always popping off all the time. And I'm just like, I've got no idea what's going on or where this is coming from. But it's genuinely terrifying, dude.
Yeah, it does it so well. There are so many horror games that I've played that use cheap jump scares. I don't feel like it pays off. But I feel like in this game, in Dead Space, especially with the remake, that everything that they built in this world or in this game, it just pays off so well. Because, like I said, it just keeps you on the edge of your seat, especially when you're playing on those hard difficulties, and it really does feel like it's truly survival horror because you have limited ammo, limited health, and you have to be strategic on how you actually play this game.
Oh, definitely. And you mentioned world building, and it made me think. So when it comes to the world building of Dead Space, I think, because like I've said, I hate horror. Like I'm really not good with getting scared. It's funny, when we just did the BioShock series, I was saying about how typically I don't play games with the volume up too much because usually I'm listening to like a video or a podcast anyway, so noise isn't as important to me. But I felt like I had to listen to everything because I wanted to hear all the story in the BioShock series. But with Dead Space, I also had to have the volume turned up because I didn't want to be caught by surprise by something that's popped up. It's so important to be able to hear where everything is coming at you from. But one thing that I find really interesting is that for me personally, it probably took me about 2 levels for me to kind of get over. I'm like, okay, I've got an idea of getting jump scared and what's going to come at me. I'm kind of used to it now. It's almost like you get desensitized to it. It's not that the jump scares aren't as effective, but you're like, all right, I know what this game is about now. But with that scare factor diminishing, my interest in the game didn't diminish. If anything, I was like, okay, this is good because now I can just focus on enjoying the story and enjoying okay, I've got this task, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. Like, I was still so engaged, even though I was getting used to that scare loop, if that makes sense. Do you feel the same way about this game?
It's hard because I feel like in the 2008 version, I would agree with you, but I feel like in the remake, they do it a little bit better. That's because they, with the remake, new facelift and, better tighter controls, there are some technical enhancements in the remake.
Okay.
Like an example, instead of going on a train and loading into each level, it's all seamless. You can just use a train to go anywhere. You don't have to load the screen.
That's so cool.
You got the modern visuals, but they also did implement an adaptive intensity system, which, if I were to compare it to another game, it's like the Left 4 Dead 2 system, where essentially it knows how well you're doing in the game or if you're not doing well, and it will tailor what's going to happen in the next room or around the corner with randomized events.
Are you serious?
So so no 2 playthroughs are the same.
Oh my god, I would. I would find that so hard.
So you could be like, "Oh, I know where they're going to come from," but in the remake, they do it so subtle and so well that 2 rooms are never the same, and you're always
fascinating.
Yeah, and to me, when I was playing that, I was always on the edge of my seat because I'm like, hey, I'm actually doing quite well. I got a lot of ammo. I got quite a lot of health. I'm pretty stocked up. But then something would happen and I'm like, oh my God, I had to waste so much ammo, or I'm like, I'm about to die. Because the game just rocks you.
Yeah, that's really cool to hear. I guess I was curious if it was like a proper remake and if it changed many of the core, because as far as I'm concerned, like I'm playing through the 2008 version and I think that the core mechanics and how it works is just great as it is. And the fact that they've improved on it in that way to make it the gameplay experience a lot more dynamic and unique, that's awesome. Like that actually makes me want to play the remake version now just to see what the difference is. That's really cool.
You should, because the difference, like it's just the small touches, but they just go such a long way. Another example is when you go into 0G on the 2008 version, of course you had to stick to
0G, I'm so glad you brought that up.
Stick to walls. In the remake, they pretty much take it from like Dead Space 2 and 3, and Isaac can move around freely in his suit.
Oh, that's cool. That's really, really cool. Because I thought it was really ahead of its time that I'm playing through this, I'm like, oh wow, it's really cool that, you know, you got not just the threat of the necromorphs and all these different types of necromorphs, which is cool, but the fact that, you know, you've got these different zones where you're literally out in space, or you're in these little chambers where there's zero gravity and you have to, like, you know, aim to jump to all these different sides of the room. I thought that that was so ahead of its time and outside of the box. But to hear that it sounds a lot more... I haven't played Dead Space 2. I've played a bit of Dead Space 3. But to hear that you can just kind of like float around and fully just control Isaac in the air, that sounds awesome.
Oh, it's incredible. And they do fix those same zero-G elements to improve or to be as difficult as it was in the original as well.
Okay, well, that's really cool. I'll keep that in mind for when I check this game out in the future, the remake version.
And they do fix the stupid turret section of the asteroid. They fix that as well.
Oh, dude, I found that really excruciating. That I actually failed at that a couple of times when I was playing, because it was like the aiming was just atrocious, dude. But it's good to hear that they improved on that as well. But just moving along, I guess. So I guess we're talking a lot about the elements and the horror and all that stuff. Just the general gameplay. I touched on it before, but there's kind of like a strategic dismemberment system in this game. So you're using all of these tools. You know, you've got the plasma cutter or whatever. All these. I can't remember all of the names of the guns, unfortunately, but I think you got like the Ripper. You got this one. It's like the saw blade in front of you. When I heard the description in the store, I was like, that sounds. I don't know. Like, I don't know how effective that would be. That turned out to be my favorite weapon. It was so cool. You get like a flamethrower and all that stuff, but basically the aim of the game is that all of these necromorphs, to a certain degree, there's so many different varieties of enemies.
Yes.
And you got to be really mindful on how you take them down. So, you know, when it comes to...
Headshots don't count.
100%. And I love that. It's so cool that, you know, you got your normal slashers that just try and rush you, and you just shoot off their legs to slow them down, and you can stomp on their head or whatever. You know, you've got these lurkers, which are like these terrifying mutilated babies that crawl on the walls. Like, they fire projectiles at you. Like the list goes on, and I won't go through all of them, but I just wanted to highlight, I guess, or bring attention to that there is actually a lot of thought that goes into how you handle all these different enemies. And there's a fair bit of strategy, which I thought was really cool as well. Did you have any particular highlights or any particular weapons or enemies that stood out to you?
Yeah, obviously, you know, for me, the plasma cutter is like the best, especially when you fully upgrade that. That thing is so good. In the remake, they do revamp some of the weapons so the secondary fire systems are a lot better. Which is a nice touch. The Ripper is so fun. I love using the Ripper. Just, you know, getting that saw blade and just, you know, it's like a chainsaw going into them. One of my, you know, the one enemies that always I liked was the exploder. The exploding arm. And I was always on edge of them because you'd be surrounded and you would hear them like just start to creep up on you. Yeah. But the one thing I just loved was just to get that shot right on their arm and either dismember them and then use your stasis to pick it up and then just throw it back at a group of enemies, or just hit it just right where it just can create an explosion.
Yeah. Did you use stasis that much in this game? Obviously outside of like, you know, slowing down doors and like puzzles and stuff. But
Yeah, no, I did. I played on a harder difficulty, and just, you don't think that, you know, on lower difficulties I can see it's probably not used that much, but just that extra second or two can be the difference between life and death.
Makes a lot of difference. Yeah. Okay, that's cool. Well, the more we talk about it, the more I just realize like how unique the weapons and encounters and the gameplay mechanics are, and how you've got these like the kinesis, like you can pull things and move things around. Like, I just think that's really cool. And yeah, just stasis as a whole, and how many different things that you can interact with, whether it's enemies, whether it's pulling like a little crate for you to swing at or stomp on. Like, there's just so many different ways to play the game, and I think that that's really cool, because in this game I found that I didn't really deviate too much from like, say, 2 or 3 different types of guns, and I naturally tried to avoid getting as close to the enemies as I possibly could, so I probably wasted way too much ammunition on enemies, and I didn't even really think to use stasis that much on enemies, to be honest, unless they were like really, really fast. So yeah, it's interesting to hear your style of gameplay, I guess, versus, I guess, my experience. But if I could say one thing that I didn't really like as much about this game, it's the workbench system. So, you know, you can upgrade your weapons and your suit, by using power nodes, which that in itself is fine. I thought it was great that you could upgrade your equipment, and because you definitely need to in this game, I think, to be more effective against the enemies. But the element that I didn't like about it is that you've got what I would describe as kind of like this web, or this skill tree, so to speak, or this tree of all these slots where you're attributing a power node to an upgrade. But sometimes you would need to spend power nodes on blank tiles to slowly make your way to another upgrade. And that kind of infuriated me a little bit, because it's like, why not just have it where you've just got this branch or this tree of just upgrades, and every time you spend a power node, you're getting a point, or you're getting an increase. Sometimes it just felt like I was just blowing a power node just so I can get to the next tile. And I don't know if I'm explaining that well enough, but I think
I 100% get what you mean.
Yeah, how do you feel about that?
You know what, I 100% agree with you. I can see why they designed it that way, to obviously make it more strategic, to be like, hey, should I use 2 power nodes to get this one upgrade?
Yeah.
Especially since power nodes are a much very scarce object around the Ishimura. And I can see obviously your side. It is infuriating because you obviously want to upgrade the best that you can to give yourself the best chance. And obviously it is frustrating because you're like, I don't have enough to get the one upgrade I want, and you may not ever get it. And it does, when I play the 2008 version, for the first or second or third time, it does deter me from doing it a lot more.
Yeah.
Because, I just don't want to try and scour for power banks and waste a power bank. On the flip side of that, in the remake, they got rid of that entirely and made it the way you want it to be, which is essentially a skill tree. It's all skill tree now.
Oh, fuck, dude. I really should have played the new version, because it's honestly one of my only gripes about the game, because I guess my argument would be that, I would even think that, like you said, power nodes are quite scarce as it is. If you got rid of these empty spaces, I feel like you would still struggle to get every upgrade that you would want anyway. So I don't know. I just felt like that could have been refined a little bit more.
But yeah, is now.
Fuck, dude. Well, I'm glad you had a better experience with that. I probably, usually we do cover the endings of the games. I mean, to be honest, I think this game itself is quite straightforward. And again, I'm just going to reiterate, and about to go through just very quick spoilers here. But in short, Isaac learns that the marker is the source of the necromorph outbreak, not the cure, and it's been manipulating him throughout the game, because as it turns out, your girlfriend, Nicole, is dead. So, so she was actually dead before Isaac even arrived. And it's really cool, because they kind of set this up a little bit, because some of the audio logs you listen to, they kind of list off the symptoms of what people on the ship have been experiencing. And there was one that just blatantly said that he thought he was hearing from his dead partner, or that the partner was still alive, but it turns out that they were actually dead and they were hallucinating it. I'm like, wow, that sounds very familiar.
Sounds like a fun drug.
Yeah, but there'd be times where she'd pop up and help you out, or she'd try and talk to you. But yeah, it turns out it's just all a hallucination. And as Isaac pieces everything together, Kendra Daniels basically betrays him, revealing that she's been working to recover the marker for corporate research. But obviously before she can escape, she's killed by the hive mind, which is kind of like the big boss battle in this game.
Gets fucked up by the hive mind.
Fucking oath, dude. Fucking oath. And yeah, basically Isaac destroys a hive mind and escapes. But of course, being a Dead Space game, it ends with a fucking annoying, well, not annoying, but this massive jump scare where, we're finally kind of like seeing his face. You can technically see his face at the start of the game. I don't know about the new version, but basically he's just like, he gets... Okay, fuck, dude. I really should have played the new version. But anyway, so at the end, you see his face and he's just like sitting down, and then he kind of turns, looks over his shoulder, and then it's just this jump scare of just dead Nicole, basically. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's Dead Space. So I'm very, very excited to see what happens in the next game. But
let me just say that they really do take it up a notch, especially with the world building and obviously Isaac's character development.
Yeah.
Before we obviously move on, obviously the differences between the story is a little bit different in the remake. Obviously,
Okay.
Isaac has a voice and has more communication with Kendra, and it actually does feel like a bigger betrayal when Kendra does that, because obviously she's very likable in the remake.
Really?
As
Okay, because
well,
she fucking
yeah.
annoyed me in the original one.
Yeah, she's you get to learn a lot more about the background of the characters, especially because Isaac has a voice. On top of that, the remake does actually have side missions, because you are able to travel freely between different stations down on a loading screen. It does have some side missions, some backtracking missions that you can do, which does offer some story-driven insight about what went wrong with the Ishimura,
Yeah.
which I found really interesting to do, and they do
That's
reward
awesome.
you as well. And, you know, they do handle the deaths of the characters a little bit better as well. So
Okay. Cool.
overall, just some small differences, but it just adds like a quality of life with the narrative in a way.
Okay, well that's really good to know, because I do feel like to a certain degree some of those elements from the 2008 version maybe are a little bit dated, but just with the execution of everything else, you kind of are willing to like overlook it for the sake of the rest of the execution. But again, like I sound like a broken record, but I'm really glad to hear that a lot of this has been touched up with the remake version, and it honestly just sounds like it is the definitive version to play of this game. But I feel like we've almost covered everything. I guess before we move on to the final thoughts, I do have a question for you, David.
Oh, dude, hit me with it.
Are you hungry?
Yes.
Talking about all this grotesque necromorph stuff has me hungry, so I thought I would... Let's talk about some Easter eggs. Woo! Oh, no. Starting off with the first Easter egg, David. So this is probably the most well-known Easter egg from the Dead Space 1 game. So while you're progressing through the story, if you note down the first letter for every chapter name in the game and put all of the letters together, it actually tells you about the fate of Nicole. And it says Nicole is dead. Yeah, she's alive, dude. Which of course is referring to is referring to Nicole, who aids Isaac through various parts of the game. I thought that was really clever, and apparently it was something that not a lot of people at the time clued onto until, of course, the arrival of amazing websites called Reddit, where everyone shares this information.
But yeah, no, you are a really cool touch, especially because I don't think anyone would have thought to like note down each different letter or save different slots to spell it out.
Exactly, but I just thought it was a neat touch. I thought it was a nice inclusion. Makes me wonder how many games do that. But moving on to the second Easter egg, David. So once you've reached chapter 10, End of Days. Upon entering the first room of the crew deck, there are several movie posters on the walls, and one of them is for a movie called Rancid Moon. So if you didn't know, David, Rancid Moon was the working title for the initial concept of the game, which was it was originally meant to be set in a space prison called Rancid Moon, but the project was later rebranded to Dead Space. And I guess as a further extension to that, apparently at some point in, what's that game that came out in 2022? The Callisto Protocol? Yeah, so apparently I think one of the lead designers of the devs on the original Dead Space moved across to do that, or as like a bit of a passion project, and that's why we've got the Callisto Protocol, because it's set in basically a space prison. And apparently there's also a poster in that game of Rancid Moon as well. But I just thought that was really interesting, And for the last Easter egg, David, so this is actually one for the Dead Space remake only. So in Chapter 11, while you're in the hangar section trying to move the marker, there's an area where you can look up and you can see the lit up name of the ship USG Ishimura. However, most of the lights in Chapter 11 are turned off from the sign, with the only remaining letters being lit is us is you. So, I've scoured through Reddit, David, and a lot of people believe that this is a cheeky reference to the marker's goal of implanting itself in Isaac's mind and becoming one with him. Throughout the story, you've got Nicole saying, make us whole, and that's, basically the marker trying to communicate with him. So it's the whole idea of us is you. Alternatively, other people feel like this is another hint or reference to how Nicole isn't alive despite Isaac's hallucinations, so it isn't Nicole and Isaac, it's just Isaac. So it's supposedly a spoiler or a hint at the fact that there isn't two of you, it's just you. So I thought that was interesting.
Make us whole again.
It hasn't been like it hasn't been confirmed if this is really anything, but it was just an interesting Easter egg. And let's face it, just with how many hints or little playful, I guess, Easter eggs or just notes that are left throughout the game, even just for Dead Space 1, I just thought, surely this is something, right? Surely this is something.
Yeah, I honestly didn't know that. Really interesting.
Yeah. But I guess let's start concluding. Let's start winding this down, David. I guess I just want to hear your final thoughts. We've basically been glazing this game for the most part of this whole recording, so I don't think it's going to be to anyone's surprise that you do not recommend this game for 2025 and it doesn't hold up today.
Could you imagine?
This remake that came out 2 years ago does not hold up today.
You should play the Callisto Protocol instead. That was better. No, in all seriousness, Dead Space definitely holds up well. It is an amazing experience. It will keep you on the edge of your seat. It is beautifully designed with its mechanics and its setting. And I honestly couldn't think of a better horror game to start out with with its original vision back in 2008, or if you want the definitive edition with the best experience, the 2023 remake.
Honestly, I couldn't have said it better myself. Even though I haven't played the Dead Space remake, I would actually say that the 2008 version still absolutely holds up today. With the remake being out, though, I would say that that's probably the most easily accessible game to access on a store. So I would definitely recommend that based on what you've told me, David. Of course, that's still going to hold up today. That came out 2 years ago, but the 2008 version still absolutely holds up today. There's a bit of jank, I would say. You know, there's a couple of elements that are a bit like, okay, this feels like it is trying to follow a couple of the classic horror tropes of jump scares, and maybe it relies on it a little bit too much, but I think that is a really small issue to raise with it, along with, you know, the workbench system or whatever. That pales in comparison to how effective the rest of the story is, the setting, the gameplay. It feels really fun to play, even though it's slower. That's not necessarily a bad thing. And I just think it's a really interesting story. So overall, I definitely think it still holds up today.
Man, aren't I feeling a bit Dead in Space 2? I'm sorry.
I'm going to cut that. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Does This Game Still Hold Up? David, does this game still hold up? So in today's video, David and myself are, of course, going to be revisiting the iconic space horror game Dead Space 2. Now, just for a quick disclaimer, I have actually never played this game before this video, but David, I'm pretty sure you've got extensive experience with not only just the Dead Space series, but this game specifically. Am I correct in assuming that?
You are correct of assuming that, my good friend.
Yes, I love it when I'm right. And with this series, of course, we are just revisiting this game and discussing what happens in the game. So we might cover a couple of spoilers, and ultimately we're just trying to identify whether this game still holds up today in the year of our Lord 2025. So David, I know that we usually start this off by going, oh, where do we start? But I'm just going to go straight into a bit of a plot synopsis of what happens in this game.
Please, take us through it.
Okay, so in Dead Space 2, engineer Isaac Clarke awakens on the massive Sprawl space station 3 years later after the events of the first game, and he is haunted by visions of his dead girlfriend Nicole, and suffering from the lingering effects of the alien marker. But as he awakens on this space station, to his terror, he finds that there is a new necromorph outbreak which is tearing its way through the colony. Isaac must not only battle through horrific creatures, but also through his own fractured mind to uncover the truth behind the marker's creation and ultimately to survive. So right off the bat, David, as I said, I haven't played this game before. I started playing this game Saturday morning, and I didn't hop off the couch until I finished the game. I played it from start to finish in one sitting. So if that doesn't tell you how much I enjoyed this game, David, I don't know what will. Let's just talk about the setting, I guess. So what do you think about Dead Space 2?
Well, you know, it's a completely different shift from obviously Dead Space 1. Obviously, we're not on the USG Ishimura. We are at Titan Station.
Oh, well, I mean, you kind of are at one point, I guess you could say.
Little spoilers alert. we see a very broken, very broken Isaac Clarke.
Dude.
You kind of feel bad for him. You kind of really, really feel a little bit bad for him because
he's just so like discombobulated and confused when all this shit is happening, and you're like, God damn, dude. Can I just say, straight off the rip, what a great white knuckle intro with escaping from this psych ward. This game just does not fuck around. It's like, whether you have or haven't played the previous game, we don't give a fuck. We're just going to start this game, just dialed up to 11, and he's like in a straitjacket, and he's like, you know, seeing hallucinations of Nicole, like hopping up on the desk and all that shit. I'm like, what's happening here?
Kind of freaky. She's kind of freaky now.
Yeah, and then like, you know, this guy's just like, oh, hey, Isaac, I'm gonna help you get out of here or whatever, and then just fucking turns into a necromorph right in front of you.
Right in front of your face. That one shot when like his skin ripped off his face and it's just like exposed, like
so gross.
Like muscle skeleton. He's like, you're like, oh my god! It really sets the tone that this game literally is going to be a bigger, badder version than Dead Space 1. They really up the stakes in this.
100%, 100%.
100%. They take a lot of risk. It feels, I would say this iteration, while yes, it's still got its spooks, it's still got its horror, but I feel like there's more set pieces. I feel like it's more actiony at some points of the video game. But
David, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say that this. I'm so glad you started talking about this because this game is built on set pieces. Oh my god, it's like a blockbuster movie, baby.
I thought you were about to say, David, you're fucking wrong.
David, you've never been more wrong in your life. I'm going to stop recording with you now, and I'm just going to record the rest of this show solo, okay? Never share your opinion again.
You're fired. Get out. Get out.
Apparently, even straitjackets have health bars now, too. But it's just... It's crazy, dude. And I think that what works so well, because the first game, it kind of like meanders, you know, it kind of slowly eases you into this horror world. And then obviously it just fucking slams you in the face with that necromorph chasing you into the elevator. But for this game, you're just like, holy fuck, I can't move my arms. I've got to get out of this psych ward. Everyone's crazy. And man, this game really raised the stakes. Now,
really does raise the stakes, yeah.
Let's actually talk about the sprawl, like the space colony, because I think that this is such a great next location for a game. Like, you know, it's trying to up the stakes. So let's go from this really massive planet cracker ship, the USG Ishimura, but let's actually just fucking have a city on fire, basically. Let's just like, you know, everything's gone to shit and you're just trying to escape and it's just massive. The scale of everything is just so massive and to the point where I was in awe. Like sometimes, like, you know, after I fought off a couple of necromorphs, I just find myself like looking at the vistas and just how massive the rest of the city looked. And I just thought it was so impressive. What do you think of the sprawl as a setting?
I enjoyed the sprawl. It's definitely a different setting to obviously what we're used to. I feel like with the first game, when you got to the USG Ishimura, you were there at the tail end of the outbreak. Like everyone's already a necro.
Like, it's like past tense. Everything's already happened. Past tense.
But when you're in the spore, it really is, you really do feel like you're in a breedable, livable colony because you're not in the tail end of it, you're there during it. So you're going to be seeing just so much that's happening around you, especially with how this outbreak continues to move across the settlement on, you know, Saturn's moon.
The space station,
And the space station, sorry, yeah. Like, I remember there was this one section, and it always sticks with me when I play it, and I believe, I can't remember if it's in the second act, but it's when Isaac has gone through the apartments, and there's this one level where you just walk past and you hear a baby crying.
Oh yeah, I distinctly remember that. It was so unsettling, dude.
It's just so unsettling because, like, oh my god, behind this door, it's a alive child crying. And you just, it opens up this avenue, like, what happened to the parents? Or are the parents in there? Or are they dead? Or is a child about to be turned into a necromorph? Like, it just, it really hits hard, especially now. But that always has stuck with me every time I play this game.
Well, it's interesting because I'd say that because you're moving through the sprawl, it's definitely a lot less claustrophobic as the first game. In the first game, you feel like you're so slow and you're completely vulnerable, but here you kind of feel like a fucking action star. But this game really ramps up the horror and the jump scares. It dials it to 11, but
it does.
But I'd also say that it doesn't feel as scary. I can't put my finger on it. I don't know if it's the vibe, because everything is just moving at such a breakneck pace in this game.
I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I 100% agree. This game is a survival horror game, but at the same time, it feels less scary than the original. And I don't know if it's because Isaac, I don't know if you feel less isolated in the sprawl compared to the Ishimura, or it's just maybe that we're so used to it at this point in time. But for me, it still is a really good sequel, because while yes, it's still scary, gameplay wise, it's so much more smoother than the original 2008 version.
Yeah.
And story wise, I would say it's a lot different than the 2008 version, especially now since Isaac has a voice. You know, he's actually a voice protagonist. He actually can speak. And there's multiple different characters as well with the story. It delves more into...
Perfect timing. Perfect timing. I was going to talk about characters.
Yeah. And with the story, it delves more into, the EarthGov, that government agency, obviously what they want to do and what their ambitions are, as well as with the Unitology.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like that wasn't explored in the first game, and it does have a lot of world building in its story as well, which I thought was quite nice as well, because I remember when I first played this, I'm like, okay, so these two are the most craziest two organizations. You got the people who are like, the religious fanatics, like, yes, we want to be the necromorphs. They're a higher life form. I'm like, bitch, you crazy.
Yeah, dude. Well, in a weird way, I feel like this game gets everything right. But I did find the whole plot of the Unitologists and like them wanting to more or less create another marker. I just found that to be so, I don't know, not believable, but I then did a lot of, I guess, exploration and digging online outside of the game. And I'm like, oh, okay, this kind of makes a lot more sense. So we'll cover that a little bit more later. But dude, you absolutely hit the nail on the head when it comes to the world building and expanding on, the government and the law and the Unitology. And I think that this game also actually does such a great job at, it also shows where you're actually seeing all these different locations. Like, you go through the Unitology church section. Yeah. And I just think that it's so cool how you get to see this lived in world for all these people who exist under this government, and how Unitology is such just a normal thing. But you touched on the characters, and this game does introduce a few new characters as well. And first of all, David, I'd just like to say that if I had $1 for every time a nice lady in the Dead Space universe stabbed me in the back, I'd have $2. So in the first game, we had Kendra Daniels, and she worked for the government basically, and she stabbed Isaac in the back. How dare she? And in this game, we've basically got someone who's trying to help us escape, and her name is Diana, and she's just like, look, no time to explain. We've got to hide you from the government. They're chasing you.
I can offer you a cure. I can offer you a cure for your dementia. You're like, oh yeah, this sounds too good to be true.
Sweet, this sounds great. And that's, exactly, because it was. So Diana, which it turns out she's basically like the high-ranking Unitologist behind the Necromorph outbreak in this game. And I'll just say that she basically gets killed off immediately as soon as you see her in this super gory and over-the-top way that
I didn't. Does she get melted?
She gets fucked up, dude, by the government. And I'll also say, dude, I'll also say, you can't trust people in this series, and you can't trust the government. I'll tell you that much for free. I felt like it was pretty sudden, and I'm just like, okay, whatever. But I did find visually, it was so satisfying just seeing it basically turn into Swiss cheese. But
ironically, that leads to like one of the best set pieces of the game, in my opinion.
Yeah, which one's that?
When she gets torn apart by the gunship, and then you have to escape the giant necromorph.
Oh man, it's such a cool moment. Yeah, where you're just like shooting this thing in the quiet space, and you're like ramming yourself into like this ship and trying to escape it and all that stuff, and it's all just silent. I just think it's so atmospheric, and
it's so atmospheric. It's one of my favorite moments in the game.
Yeah, but there's also two other characters I guess we'll touch on, because the bad guy, he's so forgettable. I even forget his name. He's kind of after you in a way, but but he doesn't really matter.
Yeah, he doesn't.
Yeah, but there's Ellie and there's Strauss. So it's set up basically right at the start when you're trying to escape that Strauss is just a fucking lunatic, just like you. And he's just like, hey Isaac, we're best buds. Like, let's get out of here. Yeah,
just scratching his arm. Like, wait, best buds.
Basically, you're like, dude, are you fucking all right? But he's just like, Isaac, let's destroy the marker. Let's destroy the marker. And he is really unstable, but Isaac also is in this compromising position where he doesn't have a choice. He has to basically listen to what this guy is saying.
Him. Yeah.
Yeah, but then there's also another character called Ellie that you come across, and she is a breath of fresh air in this game. It was so great seeing Isaac interact with this chick. Like, she is quite untrusting at the start, but she's like, look, we're in this shitty situation together, let's just get the fuck out of here. And it was really cool to see Isaac work with her, even though it is kind of shitty that she had to basically be Strauss's babysitter at a moment's notice for the rest of the game. But what do you think about some of these characters?
Oh, yeah, I 100% agree with you with what you're saying. Strauss is completely unhinged. I do like the interactions he have with Isaac, because you can see Isaac is kind of in his right sound of mind, and Strauss just sounds like a guy wearing a tinfoil hat sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Isaac's like, Jesus fucking Christ, man, come on.
Chemtrails, yeah. The moon landers will stay. But you are right, he's put in a position where, like, you know, he has to trust him. Ellie, I really enjoyed Ellie as a character. It's, you know, what you said, breath of fresh air, to watch their relationship blossom. And the good thing is, she's not Earth-Gov, she's not a unitologist, she's just a normal civilian, basically, that's just trying to survive. And
she's just a normal chick that you'd introduce to the parents.
Yeah, a normal chick, and, you know, she's got a really cool accent, and watching her story unfold is really interesting, and I'm really glad we got to have these characters introduced into the story, because I feel like without them, the narratively, the story would be hindered.
Oh, absolutely. They're the driving force, dude.
Yeah, they're the driving force. The main bad guy, obviously the Earth-Gov director, he's just like a generic, stereotypical, like, you're never gonna escape me, Isaac.
Yeah, well, and he also does the whole thing
he
also does the thing that I can't fucking stand in movies or just media, where the villain is talking to the main character, but in a way that is just, it's clear that they're just talking in riddles to be vague for the audience, not the person who's like, well, you wouldn't possibly understand. All will be revealed in time, Isaac. And you're like, dude, no one talks like that.
Yeah,
you're
like I said,
annoying me so much right
villain.
Now.
It's just so very, like, stereotypical generic villain, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So, you know, he wasn't really memorable, and to be honest, when I was replaying this, I completely forgot about him until I saw him for the first time pop up. I'm like, oh, that's right.
I'm like, who is this guy?
You in this game?
Who is this guy? Yeah. But I'd also say in general, so we kind of touched on it before, but again, like, the set pieces, man, this game has so many great cinematic moments, and I really noticed this from the sequence, the tram sequence, where you're fighting your way through and dodging the debris while this tram is absolutely gunning it to this new area.
That's
and so good, dude. And then it leads to this other set piece where you're shooting necromorphs while you're upside down, which leads me to a bit of a theory. I've got, you know, put on the tinfoil hat. I'll take Strauss's tinfoil hat and put it on my head. And please don't stab my eye, Strauss. And basically, my theory is that Neil Druckmann must have played this game while coming up with The Last of Us because of the hanging upside down segment, shooting the necromorphs. But which character is in this game that shares the same name as the main protagonist of the Last of Us series?
Ellie?
Yep. Who else could it be? So, Neil Druckmann, I'm on to you. I'm on to you, buddy.
I mean, you've got a great taste in games. I mean, that is a really good set piece. And I remember playing it for the first time. I'm like, I don't like being upside down. I hate this.
Yeah, dude. 100%. But I thought it was really interesting. And then, of course, later on in the game, we're taken to the USG Ishimura, which I thought was... Yeah, I thought it was interesting because it felt like a nice homage and it felt like a nice natural progression. But I will say, if I did have any complaints, I felt like I started losing interest in the game's the level design as soon as we hit the USG Ishimura. Like, I actually found all of the levels and how unique everything was, like the apartments, the psych ward, the tram, the subway, like all of that shit in the sprawl was so fascinating, dude. And then we hit the USG Ishimura, and then we just have like all these just like very generic, like kind of dirt looking levels, and then whatever, getting closer to the marker. Like I felt like it lost that unique kind of feel to it. I don't know. Like, I feel like they absolutely had an amazing, knocked it out of the park for the first half, but then they just kind of lost me a little bit for the second half. But how do you feel about that?
Yeah, no, look, I can obviously clearly see where you're coming from. When I was replaying it, I don't think I had that same kind of feelings towards you, because to me, like, I love this game and it was just a joy to replay it, especially going through Isaac's descent into his own mind. Really, it dials up the psychological horror.
Oh, it really does. Hey, it's like,
yeah.
I found like there was way more like environmental and like just frequent jump scares compared to the first game. In the first game, it felt like it happened less frequently, but that added to the tense and horror atmosphere. But in this game, it's just like, oh, we're gonna throw shit at you like all the time.
But I did enjoy going back to USG Ishimura. I did really enjoy revisiting that, because like you are right, it pays homage to the first game as well. And the one thing that I really hated replaying this for the third or fourth time, and I think you might agree with me on this, is the goddamn eye scene.
Oh, dude, it is so uncomfortable.
I hate it. It's so uncomfortable. I hate it. The needle, and you're controlling it, and you're like, ugh.
Because it's basically like, it's a plot point where you have to do this like incision in the eye to get rid of the marker's influence or whatever. And it's basically like you're having to give yourself a lobotomy through the eyeball.
Yeah, basically.
And it's just, Isaac is refusing to sit still. Like, I mean, I'd be freaking out if I was in his shoes, but you know,
I don't blame it.
Work for me here. There's only so much I can do.
So yeah, that bit always gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah, 100%. But we've covered a lot of the story and the environment and the setting and the characters. Let's actually talk about the gameplay, because I feel like I actually have the least amount to say about Dead Space 2 when it comes to the gameplay, because I feel like it kind of just refines the gameplay from the first game. Like, you know, Isaac does feel stronger. He feels faster. He feels a lot less fragile in this game. So, like, you know, if an enemy hits him, he can just bounce back quicker. It feels like the shooting is more effective. The armor feels more effective. And I don't know, like, there was a couple of new implementations. So, say, for example, a couple of new guns. I'll be completely honest, I felt like I didn't experiment with the new guns all that much. I just kind of... I went with the old faithful, you know, the Ripper, the old faithful. Yeah, the machine gun, whatever that's called, the
pulse rifle.
The pulse rifle, that's right. The plasma cutter, of course. I kind of just played how I did with the first game, and I felt like I was fine. There is a new implementation, though, that I really wanted to highlight in this game as far as gameplay goes. So there's a couple of new necromorph enemies, but I think that there's one that really stood out to me. The Stalkers are probably some of my least favorite enemies in a game, but I can also applaud how great their AI is. So basically, the whole shtick with the Stalkers is
that's so annoying.
They just hide from you, and then they peek out, which is so creepy. They just peek out behind a crate, and then they charge at you eventually. And they're so hard to get a clear shot on, so they just hang around for ages. So I found them really fucking annoying to deal with, but I also can't fault it. I think it's fucking really, really great design on Visceral Games' part. I don't think I've ever encountered an enemy like that, or enemy AI like that in the game before. What do you think?
With the gameplay, I gotta agree with you. There's not much to say compared to, obviously, from the original one. It is a lot more refined. Isaac doesn't feel much more of a tank. He actually feels more of a human person when within his suit. The gunplay is obviously refined as well. I stuck with the same thing. I just did the old plasma cutter, pulse rifle, the old faithful. And you know what, man, I love that plasma cutter. I love it.
So good.
Massive step up from the original, which is obviously when you're in 0G, you can actually free move around instead of like
I'm so glad you said that. Yeah, I loved it.
But the Stalkers, man, I hate the Stalkers. They frustrate me, but they're such a brilliant AI design, because that's what they're designed to do. They're designed to frustrate you, and when you're in a setting when you don't know where to be coming from, it does raise the hairs on the back of your neck, because you're like, I know you're around here. I can hear you.
Yeah.
Where are you?
Oh,
and then they start charging you, and they're the worst.
Yeah. Did you know, though, that this game also apparently came with a multiplayer at the time?
Yeah.
Did you ever play it?
No, because by the time I got around to playing it, I think you had to buy a specific pass to play. I don't know. It was something weird behind it.
Because I watched a couple of videos. I mean, if neither of us have played it, it's probably not really worth us talking about the multiplayer, but I just find it interesting, kind of like Bioshock 2, how it's just games from this period of time just seem to ship with the multiplayer because why not? You know?
Why not?
Like,
it was it felt tacked on. It was necromancers versus humans, basically.
Okay. Yeah. Well, no, that's interesting. But I just find it interesting that this came with a multiplayer mode. And I guess my final thoughts for gameplay itself is my issues with Dead Space 1 and the power node system and the workbenches, that it's still present, but maybe the power nodes felt a little less scarce in this game. So that's not necessarily a fix, but just something I noticed. But are you happy to talk about like the ending of this game, or did you have anything else you want to cover first?
No, nothing else that I can think of, but I'm more happy to obviously, we can go through with the ending.
Yeah, sure. So as you kind of touched on before, so towards the end of the game, Isaac reaches this massive, ginormous marker because, as it turns out, because Isaac has had experience or has come into contact with the marker and it's kind of like driving him a little bit crazy, the marker with some people has this specific effect where they can basically see like blueprints on how to create the marker. And it's kind of revealed that it's basically like people who are smart. Everyone else who's fucking idiots, they just like go crazy and just like turn into necromorphs or whatever the fuck. But people like Isaac and Stross, they can see ways of how to create these markers, which is obviously what the marker wants to do. And this whole game, Nicole, it just constantly shows up and jump scares and is trying to communicate with Isaac because she wants him to reach the marker, so that way he's the final piece of the puzzle for the marker to be complete. And we reach that point where he needs to stick the needle in the eye to be able to basically start cleansing himself or get rid of this marker influence. This whole story is Isaac having to come to terms with the fact that he has to accept that Nicole is gone and he needs to let go of her. And he realizes that Nicole is just, 100%.
Yeah.
Isaac realizes that Nicole is the manifestation of the marker's control. Therefore, he basically fights and defeats the monstrous embodiment of Nicole and in turn the marker's influence, destroying both in the process. And as the sprawl begins to collapse, Isaac is rescued by Ellie at the last minute. And the game closes with this parallel to the first game ending, which I loved. The first game ends with the jump scare of like Nicole just jumping out at the screen. And this time around, it just like turns and hovers on Ellie. And I'm like, oh God, what's going to happen here? But nothing happened.
God.
Nothing happened. It was nice. He had a good ending.
Yeah, Ellie just goes, what? And it just cuts to black.
It's so good, dude. So good. It's such a good callback. And I remember at the time, I felt like with this game, it was just wanting me to accept and go along with, some of the stuff it was throwing at me throughout the story. Like, with Isaac and Stross being the ones that could build the new marker. But I never really understood how they were building a marker. Like, I don't know if that was ever explained. I'm like, how are these guys building the marker? Like, I don't know what's going on, but I guess I just got to accept it. How do you feel about it?
To me, like, obviously with Nicole being the manifestation of Isaac's obsession and guilt that he lost Nicole, and just him fighting her in like that weird mind palace, like where he's like, I don't know if he's in his own mind or if he's in the marker's mind, and just him, Isaac going, you're not Nicole, Nicole's dead, fuck you. It was just such a badass moment. And obviously, after he defeats that manifestation, and obviously that ending that pace so much the first one, you feel a little bit hopeful that, maybe Isaac is going to have that happy ending he deserves. I do love the world building that they've done with this game. I do love the unitologist's fascination with the marker and the religious aspects of the marker and how, like, they want to be, like, this weird, like, hive mind of some sort following this one thing is just so eerie and creepily. I just fell in love with that kind of lore. And then obviously you have the other side of Earthguard that want to kind of control the marker in a way or try to use it as a weapon. And you're like, that's not going to work. That's a bad idea.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Stop that. And I fell in love with it. I can see obviously, where you're coming from, like how you didn't understand it. But once you research it, you kind of see the bigger picture.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, like, when talking about the story, I think that the Dead Space games, at least so far, it's so rich with detail and lore, which is fascinating. But for the actual Dead Space game itself, the story is a little bit flat and not as important. And it's all about taking you through this action horror experience. But in my mind, when I'm watching a movie like Alien or Predator, I'm not expecting it to be like the next Citizen Kane. If it delivers on an entertainment story that's, great spectacle of action or horror, then it's done its job perfectly. Anything else, then I'm like, cool, whatever. So I'm not going to like deduct points from this or whatever, just because I find that the story is a little bit like either convenient or a little bit just like, okay, like whatever. I still had an incredible time, and like I said, I couldn't put the controller down. I played it from start to finish in one sitting. So I think it was incredible. But I feel like that probably spoils my final thoughts on this. But I think before we do go to the verdict, David, I'm just going to cover off a couple of quick Easter eggs.
Let's do it. No.
All right, so let's talk about some Easter eggs, David. So first up, while you're in the transport hub in Chapter 6, speaking with Ellie and Strauss on the floor above you, you can actually spot a billboard for a brand new skate game called Skate 3000. Who knew this series would be so popular, David? And a bit of a fun fact as well about Skate, actually. So in Skate 3, there was a cheat code called Dead Space 2, so TOO. If you entered that code in, you would actually unlock Isaac Clarke as a model in the game for Skate 3. So it's kind of like they kind of did a little Easter egg for both, like for each other, which I think is really cool.
I do love this Easter egg, and I do know about both. It's such a cute little callback to each other.
Oh, it's so cool, dude. I really liked it. And I mean, there's also a poster called like Kitty Kitty Bang Bang, I think, or something like that. But yeah, really cool little Easter egg. Moving on, so in Chapter 6, you'll go into a zero-gravity area with a large fire that needs to be put out by removing the power cells of the oxygen system in the room. Now, if you keep going straight, when you enter the first door, you will see a bulletin board to the left at the end of the hall, and on that bulletin board is a handwritten note that says, "My family was killed by necromorphs. Need money to buy plasma cutter or beer." It's just such a random little hand-drawn note. It's just like, okay. Yeah, it's so random. I'm like, okay, cool.
I wonder if he got his money, and I wonder if he picked the beer.
Oh, fuck, man. Who knows? And lastly, in 2010, Dead Space developer Visceral Games held a competition in which it asked fans to design their own melee execution for the upcoming Dead Space 2. A UK student named Dan Emerson was the winner, and his prize was the cameo in the game. So his cameo in Dead Space 2, I believe it was in Chapter 2, but you're in an elevator at one point that gets stuck, and a man comes running up to the elevator begging for your help, only to get ripped away by a necromorph. And that was him. That was him who won the prize, Dan Emerson.
Oh,
so I thought that was really cool.
That.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Well, he didn't last long, did he?
Fuck no.
He got torn apart.
So that's basically the Easter eggs. There are, I think, a couple more references, but those are the ones that really jumped out at me, and I thought that they were really neat inclusions in this game. But with the Easter eggs out of the way, David, I'm dying to know, what is your verdict? Do you still think that Dead Space 2 holds up in the year of our Lord 2025?
You know what? I'm going to have to agree with that statement and say, yes, this game does still hold up in the year of our Lord 2025. Dead Space 2 is a perfect sequel. It expands the scope with its set pieces. It deepens the story with its lore. You get to like Isaac more because he actually is human dialogue. Feelings. He has a dialogue and actually humanizes him a lot without obviously losing its terror of the original. It's a psychological descent into madness that you will fall in love with. If you haven't played it, what are you doing? It's on Game Pass. I'm pretty sure it's on EA Play or whatever it is. Whatever it is now.
Yeah, it is.
Go play. You will have a blast experiencing this game for the first time. Now is the perfect time to play it, of course, as well. It still holds up graphically and gameplay mechanic-wise still in 2025.
I can't disagree with that. I think that I found this game to be way more enjoyable than the first one. And it's interesting because I heard that this game really ramped up the horror and the scares. And I can say to a certain degree it does, but I just found it to be more of an engaging experience, and one that honestly I could easily see myself replay this game way more than I could replaying the first game. And that's not to say that it doesn't hold up today by any means. It's more just that I felt like this was just a completely different experience. It was more action, but it also felt like it belonged in this Dead Space universe where it was just inherently just this scary, horror, creepy and unsettling space adventure. And I really liked what they did with the story. I felt like the direction of having this outbreak at this space station city was just perfect. And having Isaac interact with other characters while it's also increasing the scale and scope of the universe that they're inhabiting with the government, the sprawl, the unitology. Like, I just think that it was all just so fascinating. So yeah, I definitely think that it holds up today. I secretly really hope that it gets the remake treatment that the first Dead Space game got, because
God, I think that's so bad.
Oh, dude, I honestly think it seems like online, like unanimously, everyone kind of seems to think that this is where the series potentially peaked. Have you heard of the term one step forward, two steps back?
I have heard of that term. Very famous term.
Well, there's a chance that this may be applicable for today's video, because today we're both talking about Dead Space 3. We're taking it off the ice, we're dusting it off, and we're seeing if this game still holds up in the year of our Lord 2025. So, to anyone new to this series, so we are going through the Dead Space Trilogy at the moment, and we're capping it off with Dead Space 3. Of course, I have a lot of thoughts about this game, because it is certainly different than the first two games. But make sure to stick around to the end of this video to hear our final verdict of the game. But for the meantime, let's quickly go over what this game is about, David. So, hold on, Spider Monkey, we've got ourselves a love triangle in this game.
This is the face of a killer, Ella.
So Dead Space 3 follows Isaac Clarke and John Carver as they journey to the icy planet of Tau Volantis, the supposed homeworld of the Markers, and in a desperate attempt to uncover the source of the necromorph plague. In this game, Isaac also reunites with his old flame Ellie as they battle cultist, frozen horrors, and visions triggered by the marker influence. And this game basically unravels the truth behind humanity's repeated outbreaks, and they face a final chance to end the cycle of destruction for good.
Or do they?
Ooh, dun dun dun.
Dun dun.
Well, let's just share our thoughts on the story and setting, and perhaps as characters first up, David. So, this is a game. This is a game for sure. So, let's just start off with you, David. How do you feel about this game?
You know, like overall, or just story content wise?
Let's focus on like the story and setting for now, I guess.
Dead Space 3 is definitely a unique game in the trilogy. To me, I will say the story is kind of the weakest out of 1 and 2. You know, Dead Space 1, we had to try and find Nicole and survive the outbreak. Dead Space 2 was trying to survive the outbreak and stop the outbreak and spread on the station. Dead Space 3, I'm going to be completely honest with you, I found it was a struggle for me to connect with the story. Mainly because this game really does feel like it has an identity crisis.
Okay.
Especially with the way it unfolds. Look, I do like the idea of, you know, Isaac being on the planet where the marker originates from and discovering that. But to me, it was a struggle for me to get through the story, I'm not gonna lie. Especially with the gameplay and how it's more of an action focused kind of side.
Okay.
Really didn't connect with it, really didn't feel passionate to move forward. I don't know if that's just me. What about you? What do you think of the story?
I think what's really interesting about this game is that I tried to play a lot of this game towards the latter half of the week before our recording, so that way everything is fresh in my mind. But I'm honestly kind of struggling to remember a lot of stuff that happened in this game, because I feel like nothing really...
It's not just me.
I just feel like nothing really stands out. It's like, dude, it's...
I have market dementia. I have market dementia.
I will say that, to give it credit where it's due, so, you know, the intro cutscene actually explained everything that I needed to know about Dead Space in the story so far, which was nice, and it actually filled in a few question marks that I had about, you know, both the unitologists and the government, what they're wanting to do with the markers, and basically leads us straight into the current situation where there's basically an all-out war with a unitologist, which is led by Danik, and, you know, after a brief, like, 200 years earlier, kind of like a prologue or whatever the fuck you want to call that, another plot point, I guess, in this game is that Isaac and Ellie have been in hiding since the events of Dead Space 2. And in turn, Isaac went basically no contact with Ellie, which led to her moving on with one of the world's most annoying characters, which is Robert Norton.
My God.
And it's just, this game introduces like this love triangle element to it. And I was just like, what the fuck are we doing here? And, you know...
Can we talk about my dead girlfriend again? Can we go back to that?
Oh, man. It's just... I feel like this game has good ideas, but it's just all over the place. And kind of like what you were alluding to before, Dead Space 1, it's like this really tense horror game where, like, very atmospheric. You're trying to see what the fuck has happened with USG Ishimura, and then the second game you're trying to literally just survive this outbreak by the skin of your teeth, or skin of your nose, whatever the saying is. And with this game, it's just kind of like... teeth. But with this game, it's just kind of like, well, how do we do the necromorph thing? How do we do the necromorph thing again? I know. We'll take the fight to the necromorphs in the sense that, like, and to be fair, I like that. I like that idea where...
It's a cool premise.
Yeah, so it's like Isaac is trying to stop the marker and the necromorphs at the source. It's a great idea in theory, but then this game just stumbles with its execution and presentation. And I think the perfect example of my issues with this game is that, let's look at the snowy planet of Volantis or whatever it's called. So you have something interesting happen in the game where you crash land onto this snowy planet, and you need to be very careful about temperature. You can't be outside for too long, and you stay close to fire. It's a really interesting gameplay mechanic and premise. I was like, okay, this is cool. This is actually like spicing things up a little bit. I actually have to be really careful here. But then within like 20 minutes, the game just takes this element away from you. It's like, oh, you got a new suit now. Cool. So it's just like, okay. I feel like this game just continuously just implements all these different things. And because it's trying to implement all these different things to appease, I don't know, appeal to the broadest possible audience, it actually ends up just appealing to no one. And it just...
100% agree. You said it so well right there.
It was just a really frustrating experience for me. And a lot of my gripes, I'd actually say, are more with the gameplay and the mechanic side of things. But one thing that I do like, to try and balance this out as best as I can, I think the voice acting is great. I think especially with Ellie and Isaac's voice actors both reprising their roles, and you can feel the chemistry and their interest with each other, and, you know, them bouncing off of each other is really great. And I also think that the implementation of Carver and the idea of co-op is actually really interesting as well. For those of you who haven't played this game, Carver, he's basically this military guy. He's all fucked up because he had to kill his wife and son after they were turned into necromorphs. So he's got his baggage. But what's interesting about this game is the co-op. Neither of you and I played the co-op version, I'm assuming anyway. But this campaign, what I love about it is that it doesn't feel like it's designed to be a co-op campaign. If I wasn't made aware of the fact that there was a co-op option, I wouldn't have been able to tell, because the game doesn't pit you in.
That is true.
Like, the game doesn't pit you in with like a constant, like, you know, second AI buddy. If you're playing solo, the story itself works as a solo story. And the only times occasionally kind of stood out to me that the story was a bit janky because I was playing solo is cutscenes where Carver would just seemingly pop up out of nowhere, and you can kind of tell that like Isaac and Carver have meant to have bonded or something, or like, you know, they're getting along fairly quickly despite Carver never being like in the picture. But I just thought it was a really interesting premise on how they executed it. It's like, you can do this whole thing with co-op and the presentation would be slightly different with Carver popping up and all that stuff. But you can also play it solo and it does still feel like a proper solo game. So I thought that was really cool. Do you have any other thoughts on like the story, the characters, the people, or anything like that before we move on to the gameplay?
Pretty much what you said is pretty much nail on the head. I have played a bit of it in co-op with a friend a few years ago.
Okay.
And I feel like it is more enjoyable when it is co-op, especially because co-op is drop in and drop out. And when it's drop in and drop out, I always give a game a plus, because it's nice to have a seamless co-op experience where you can just have someone join, and it is fun to verse the necromorphs when you do have a friend next to you. However, you know, as I said earlier, this story is, like I said, to me, it's the weakest. Even though I played most recently, it was a struggle to get through, and it was very forgettable, as well as the main antagonist, Danik. Very forgettable. Yeah, he was very, very forgettable. I thought Tenement was a forgettable villain in Dead Space 2. This guy is just... is he's just there. He's just bad to be bad. You know what I mean? I feel like he was just there to have an antagonist. Like, I understand, like, always a unitologist, but I just didn't feel like his goals, or like you understood why he was doing the things that he was doing. So yeah, to me, the story was a little bit of a letdown while replaying it. I did try to give it an open mind, but it just rubbed me the wrong way, I guess.
If the bar wasn't set so high from the previous games, especially with the leap from Dead Space 1 to 2, I think that it wouldn't be as disappointing. And if anything, I'm actually surprised that people didn't shit on this game a lot more when it first came out, because I went back and watched a few reviews of it just out of curiosity, and a lot of people will say, oh yeah, you know, it's Dead Space as you know and love it, but it's a little bit more action focused. But I'm like, no, it's worse. It's worse in every aspect, and the action doesn't even feel good in this game. It actually feels worse, which I guess we'll just start talking about the gameplay. But something that you actually mentioned before, which kind of got me thinking when you were talking about, like, you know, shooting off necromorphs, like with a co-op buddy or whatever, it made me think, because one thing I noticed about this game is that when this game sends like hordes, like waves of necromorphs at you, it feels like they just send wave after wave. They just don't stop for a while, and it feels like there's an issue with how many enemies like spawn in. And I wonder if that's because it's originally designed for co-op in mind, so that way there's enough like enemies to mow down per person. So I wonder if that's a balancing thing there. But let's move on to, I guess, maybe some of the presentation and, well, the gameplay, I guess. I'm just going to go through a bit of a list here because I don't think that there's like a real seamless way to be able to tie this all together. So first of all, straight off the bat, I hate the font. I don't know why, but it feels cheaper and more dated. They've got this like, I don't know, this impact regular, like this like squashed kind of
they
font.
went Comic Sans, never go Comic Sans.
It doesn't feel cohesive with, it feels like they tried to change ever so slightly the design of basically everything in this game. Like the suits look kind of different. Obviously they would, because it's like set on like a snow planet, but everything looks, even graphically, like I don't know why, but this game actually kind of looks worse to me than Dead Space 2, when Dead Space 2 came out 2 years prior. But the bench and weapon system has been overhauled, and I feel like it's for the worse. I feel like the whole bench system is really convoluted. I don't know, just they overcomplicated something that was already kind of in my opinion, a bit of a flawed system within these games. I think there's way too many weapons now, and none of them really feel all that memorable. I never really felt inclined to, you know, make sure I get all my salvage up so that way I can make all these different types of weapons, because as far as I'm concerned, I was just like, holy fuck, like I just don't know what I'm looking at.
It is a bit confusing and overwhelming. I will agree with you on that.
It is, man. It's just too much now. And I'd say that the enemy AI in general, it feels off. Just the way they behave is just different, and they also feel like the dismemberment system feels less responsive, and the enemies just feel like bullet sponges in this game. Like in the previous games, I could just aim at someone's limbs, pop their legs off within 1, maybe 2 shots, and there was strategy there. That doesn't happen in this game. I have to shoot someone's legs like 5 or 6 times before they finally pop off, and then like, you know, 1 or 2 more times in the head. That's just not fun to me. Increasing an enemy's life just so that way, like, you know, oh, it's longer to take them down, there's more of a challenge. That's not fun. That's not what I
100% agree.
I don't think that's fun. This game is also a cover shooter, kind of, maybe?
Yeah, it's very a light integration of a cover shooter, which is bizarre in itself.
Yeah, for one moment, a fleeting moment, it's like, by the way, did you know you can crouch and you can like duck behind cover? And I never used that feature again. I was just like, okay, this is just like so half-baked and half-assed. And also, let's talk about audio as well. Everything is loud. The directional audio with enemies feels non-existent. Sound is so important with Dead Space games, because trying to hear
that atmosphere.
Yeah, you'd hear the direction that they're trying to come at you from. But in this game, I'm just going to use a random example here, like nothing specific, but let's just say I'm in an open room in this game and there are 3 necromorphs, and I have only seen 2 of them. The other one is somewhere out of my line of sight, and I've killed 2 necromorphs. But I can still hear the third one in this big room somewhere, as if it's like right in my ear, and the volume level of that necromorph doesn't increase or decrease depending on the direction or depending on how close or far I am from it. It's just the same volume. And I don't know how we arrived at this in this game, the third iteration, when it already nailed it in the first game. I don't know how we're here. It's just frustrating, man. It was so... The more I played the game, the more angry I got, because I was just like, how are we here? I was so disheartened. And if I can like compare this to another franchise, this game to me feels like the jump from Gears of War 3 to Gears Judgment, or say Ratchet and Clank 3 to Ratchet Gladiator. It's like, it's got, It wears the skin and it's got the name of the same series, but it's just completely different.
It's like I said, it's that identity crisis, and it's so jarring to come from Dead Space 1 and 2 to this, because it feels like a whole entire different game at some points. Like the cover mechanics, I don't know why it's my cover mechanics in this game. I don't know if they're trying to implement a Gears of War style kind of cover mechanics. And you are right, it's half-baked, it's weird. It is janky and it's weird to get into cover. The weapon crafting is just very convoluted and confusing, and just feels, I just wanted back the old school way where you just had the node system that just made more sense. The enemy AI, God, I'm so glad you mentioned this. And I don't know if it's different because this game was designed to be co-op-minded, which is why it's why the AI is a little bit stupider or just weird. It could have been, maybe it's better to be designed for two people to play it. And it's honestly just disappointing. It really is disappointing, because they really nailed the formula in Dead Space 2. Like Dead Space 2, they had everything ticked and gone for them. It was perfectly baked. It was perfectly designed. And this game, I don't know if it's because EA wanted to push us out the door half-baked, which, to be honest, wouldn't surprise me. It just feels like it's all over the place. It was really hard for me to play it, because you are right. The more I played it, the more annoyed and disappointed I got with it, because it's not the Dead Space I fell in love with 1 and 2.
No, exactly. I don't know, man. Like, I don't want to shit on the game, but it's just like, even visually, like the characters look like they've got less detail. The enemies, like the necromorphs, look like brown blobs. Like they just look worse now. Like everything just looks worse. So I don't know. I don't understand what happened, and I don't know if maybe it's not uncommon for massive developers to have multiple different studios, so maybe it was like a different studio that looked after this game. I don't know, but it just feels completely different. But maybe stepping away from I guess the negativity or whatever, are you happy for me to kind of talk about the ending or talk about the rest of the story real quick?
Yeah, please do. I'm very excited to obviously dive into that.
Yeah. So I'll give a bit of a disclaimer, a bit of a heads up as well. I'll have to do a little bit of recapping for those of you who don't play, because I think this kind of better informs my thoughts and feelings. But to cut an incredibly long story short, the whole time Norton is trying to talk Ellie out of this mission because he just wants to go home. Ellie keeps pushing back and Isaac goes along with her. Norton secretly makes a deal with the unitologist leader Danik, basically give him their coordinates on this planet so Danik can capture Isaac in exchange for Ellie and Norton's passage home. Danik, of course, betrays Norton, which gets interrupted by a frozen hive mind necromorph. And after that fight, Norton pulls a gun on Isaac, but Isaac pulls harder and faster and kills Norton first. Which, by the way, I'll just quickly say, Ellie goes, "I just don't understand why Robert would try to kill you, Isaac." And Isaac's like, well, he was pushing for you to go home and I was pushing for you to stay and complete the mission. And then Ellie's like, I just thought Robert wanted to be here and complete the mission. And I'm like, are you fucking serious? Like, duh, like he's the bad guy. He was a dick the whole game. And then literally like one chapter later, she's like kind of starting to get all over that and she's all over Isaac again. I'm like, all right, Ellie's back. But anyway, so Isaac discovers that the moon orbiting Tau Volantis is actually the necromorph source and not the planet that they're on. The moon is called a Brethren moon, which is like a mass of organic life, and it's formed after the convergence events. And Isaac and Carver basically find this device which can stop or recommence the convergence event. And eventually there's a standoff with Danik, Ellie, Isaac, and Carver. Carver gives Danik the device to save Ellie, and the convergence starts. Danik basically gets crushed by rubble, so, unceremoniously just defeated. And Isaac and Carver basically sacrifice themselves to stop the convergence, but not before Isaac smooches Ellie and sends her on her way to save her. And basically the game ends legit. And the game pretty much ends with the Brethren Moon crashing into the snowy planet, and it's assumed that Isaac is dead, with the necromorph marker signal fading, which Ellie identifies from her ship. The end. Or is it? There
was some DLC, I believe you're going to announce right now.
That's right. So this game came out with a DLC, but I was looking into it out of curiosity because I felt like the ending of this game kind of tied things up, but it kind of tied it up in a very unsatisfying way. I wasn't really happy with the ending of this game. And it's kind of like, it made me feel like Mass Effect 3. Obviously that game series is built on choice, but it just didn't feel satisfying immediately. And then they came out with DLC to fix the ending. So I was curious if that was happening here as well. And I might get some of this wrong, but basically that period between Danik reactivating the convergence and Isaac stopping it supposedly was enough time for this Brethren Moon to send a signal to the other Brethren Moons that are out there, supposedly, which all have arrived at Earth by the time that Ellie gets back to Earth. So it just makes me feel like, why did we go through this game? This whole game just feels pointless to me, because the premise of it is like, hey, let's just stop the necromorphs at the source. We spend the whole game trying to find the source and all that shit. And then it's like, oh, by the way, the planet wasn't the source. It's actually this Brethren Moon.
The moon.
And then we end this game thinking, okay, so Isaac's dead, probably, but at least we stopped the source. It's a bit of a, gruesome, unhappy ending, but, we got there. But then this DLC is just like, yeah, but what if there were other Brethren Moons? Like,
which makes no sense.
Are they the source? Are they the source? Are they just other moons that are just hanging out there? Like,
it makes no sense.
I understand it. Like, it makes sense. It technically makes sense, but it's just lazy. It just feels so lazy. And had they have gone into this truly looking to conclude this trilogy properly, I think it would have been much more satisfying. But it just, unfortunately, it just feels like they were like, hey, let's just do something and then kind of set up a sequel. Maybe. Tee. I don't know. Maybe.
The one thing I hate, and I've talked about this on multiple videos of you, is that when they half-bake an ending, but they try to fix it with the DLC.
Yeah.
It's annoying. It really just shows how much, to me, I feel like this game was rushed out of the gate. Because clearly there was something going on between Visceral Games and EA, where EA wanted to try and capitalize on, one, a co-op shooter, and one, on a Dead Space franchise name, because the sequel did so incredibly well that they pushed these guys to really rush the ending of this game. Oh, this game in general.
So,
and it really does show with the way it ends, as well as with the DLC that ends on a cliffhanger as well.
Usually I would agree with that, but this DLC only came out a month after the release of the game. So one would assume that this DLC would have actually already been completed by the time that the full release of the game came out anyway. So it's like they already had this shit planned. It's not like they released it, stepped back, worked on the DLC, then released it. So it's like,
maybe it was the full game and EA just wanted to cut the ending just so they could make more money.
Who knows? But I think overall, like, even after just explaining the ending, I'm just like kind of left here just feeling like nothing.
Exhausted. Just numb and exhausted.
What did I just
what was the point?
Play? I don't know. It was weird. But look, David, do you have anything else for the meantime that you wanted to say about this game?
I feel like when you and I play a game that we love, we can talk about it for hours. Go around in circles, talk about how fun we had with this game. And just for this, I have not much more to say than obviously my final thoughts, because spoiler alert, I really do feel disappointed with this game, and all I can say is I guess we can just, move on to the Easter eggs, I guess.
Yeah, well, okay, I was just going to say enough trashing on this game, David, but I say we should lighten things up around here and take a delicious look at some of this game's Easter eggs. And I'll try and keep it mercifully brief as well. So, first up, we've got, I think this Easter egg is a nice little throwback, actually. So, similar to Dead Space 1, this game also has an Easter egg regarding the first letter of each of the game's chapters. So in the first game, if you combine the first letter of each chapter, it would spell out Nicole is dead, which is obviously a spoiler for the end of that game. But in Dead Space 3, if you do the same, it spells out brother moons are awake. And I think with the context of the game's DLC, it makes a lot more sense to me. But I thought this is a really nice touch and a callback to the first game, which was, yeah, just a really neat inclusion, I think.
You know, just about Nicole is alive.
Oh my god. Dead Space 4, Nicole is back, baby.
And she's angry.
She's bigger and better. Okay, so these next two, so I mean, I guess I put them into Easter eggs, but to be honest, this game doesn't actually have a lot of Easter eggs that I can find, but these are more just like some kind of like neat inclusions, I guess. So there is an unlockable weapon in this game called the foam finger, also known as the
I
devil
love the
horns.
foam finger.
Yeah, so with the main weapon in this game, it's called Bang, and the alt fire being Pew. So to unlock the Devil Horns, you must first beat the main campaign, then you have to play over again with the New Game Plus mode, but have the difficulty set to Classic. Once you beat the Classic mode on New Game Plus, you should have the weapon unlocked. So I just thought that was a really stupid weapon. It looks really dumb, but it's so cool.
They did bring that weapon back for the remake as well, the Dead Space 1
awesome.
remake. So you have to beat it on Impossible without obviously dying. And yeah, you get the foam finger, and Isaac goes bang bang and pew pew with his alt fire.
That's so cool. And then lastly, if you're a fan of the Mass Effect series, David, which I know you are, then you're in luck. Because Dead Space 3 actually has an N7 suit, which is based on the Commander Shepard's armor in the Mass Effect series. So all you need to do to be able to get this suit is have a Mass Effect save present on your console or PC, and if that is the case, then this suit should automatically be available to you. So yeah, I just thought that was a really cool inclusion as well. I mean, I guess it's another EA property, but who cares? It's Mass Effect, baby.
I mean, it's Mass Effect. My name's Commander Shepard, and this game is not my favorite.
Okay, so I guess that neatly brings us along to the verdict. So David, why don't you let the people know how you really feel?
Dead Space 3 is really, for me, a disappointing send off to a very beloved game series of mine. It's a slog to get through. It has a massive identity crisis. It really feels like a lot of ideas were half-baked. There are some, little pieces with obviously the gameplay. I mean, it is more of Dead Space. If you love Dead Space 2, you're going to love, obviously, the same kind of gameplay mechanics that I found here. However, there are just so many issues that I find with the story, with some other choices with what they've done with the mechanics, that just make it really hard for me to say that it still holds up well in 2025, especially since this game was the game that pretty much killed the franchise. To me, if you're a fan of the series and you haven't played it before and you are interested, by all means go play it. But for me, I don't recommend this in our year of our Lord 2025.
Yeah, and I gotta say the same thing here. I'm really disappointed by this game because as someone who hasn't exactly played, I played a little bit of 1, haven't played 2, played a tiny bit of 3, and ironically enough, when I first played a bit of 3, I thought it was kind of fun. But after playing the first 2 games, and I guess it doesn't help that we're doing this back to back, like week after week, but man, you can immediately notice the downgrade in quality going from Dead Space 2 to Dead Space 3. It just feels like it was designed by like a different studio and they were just like, here's the tools to make a Dead Space game, here, have fun. So ultimately, I would just say that I can't recommend this. In good conscience, David, I can't recommend this in 2025.
To the people. I can't recommend it to the people.
I think that if you absolutely love the lore, one thing that these games seems to do is that, the lore in the first game, it got expanded upon with like the unitology and stuff like that in the second game, so it kind of makes the world and the scope look bigger. And then in this game, in Dead Space 3, it's like, by the way, did you know that there's something called Brethren Moons? And it kind of like looks like this Lovecraftian shit, and you're like, oh wow, that's kind of cool. But I just
do you like Twilight?
Because
of love triangle in this.
Yeah,
you're Edward, and the other guy's Jacob, and Ella's Bella.
That Brethren Moon is Bella Swan's dad, the mustache. I don't know. But I think that Dead Space 1 and 2, that was a perfect amount of story. The the first game ended with Isaac Clarke being like in a rough spot, and then at the end of the second one, it's like he redeemed himself, and it felt like you had done everything that you finally needed to do. And this was just, Dead Space 3 was just the unnecessary sequel to all that, to try and expand the world even more. Just fucking, you should have left it at 2.
Yeah, leave the man alone. Look how tired he looks.
So